Hi, everyone. Jory Desjardins from Optionality here. And welcome to something that we hope to do a lot more of with Optionality. We do a monthly deep dive session, and we're doing this via video this time. And let me tell you a bit more about Optionality, who we are, what we're about, and about our guests for today. So we are a membership community and platform for experienced professionals who are ready to embrace new ways of working via live and virtual events, masterclasses, local meetups and retreats. Optionality members are equipped, educated, and empowered to make bold new moves and embrace their next act. And as part of what we do every month for our members, we offer a deep dive where we talk to a practitioner, an expert, someone who has gone through something that we are learning about, and then we take it to our members. And this month we'll take it to the public at large because we're all experiencing something. I would call it general uncertainty of late, but there's a way that we look at this from optionality standpoint, and that is, even amidst uncertainty, we have to move forward with whatever it is that we're doing in our lives. And energy management is one of the critical skills that we are imparting to our members. We always talk about it. And one of the things that we always hear from our members is, give me strategies for how I can, one, stay motivated, how I can change the way I am working so that I'm leveraging my energy to its fullest. And how do I put perspective on a lot of the changes that are happening, not just in my life, but in the world, so that I can better leverage the energy I have. So generally, there are three areas that we're looking at. And this month, where we've been focusing on energy management, those are one, kind of a biological shift in energy. So many of our members are women who have been in the work world for 25, 30 years. And perimenopause is a thing. We have energy shifts. And I will attest that just in general, the way that I've been using my energy and feeling my energy has been changing. So how do we leverage our opportunities better when we have biological shifts and just shifts because we're getting older with our energy? The next one is events that have come upon us that we can't really control, but that impact our energy. So illness. Personal illness of a family member, something that has happened that truly does force us. It's like a forcing function to really think through how we're managing our energy. And then the third impact is one that I've been reading about quite a bit. In fact, I can't really not be on LinkedIn and not see people who are talking about this, but socio-political impacts. We have a new government regime in place, and that has led to not only layoffs, but a lot of shifts in the way that we are putting ourselves out into the world. And it impacts us in ways that we haven't really thought about. I'll give you an example. A really good friend of mine who is in the DE&I space, she can't really even call it DE&I, was telling me that her job is she had to change her title, and she can't even really talk about what she does because her firm doesn't want that to impact their capabilities and their funding. So she has to keep everything on the down low, which is a real bummer for your energy, especially if you want to have impact in the world and you can't really talk about what you do. So there's a lot going on right now, personally and professionally, for so many of us. And so I thought this month we would bring in someone who I personally have turned to for guidance, someone I've known for a very long time. I won't even talk about what decade we met in, but who for so many years has really been working with people. I call, you're in the transition business, Laura. Laura Berman Fotgang is an executive business and career coach, professional speaker, a coach mentor. She's the author of the Now What Chronicles on LinkedIn, which covers career seekers and coaches looking for the next challenge. She wrote the book, Now What, which I read cover to cover because, of course, I've been in transition multiple times and have turned to your work to get me through and to think through how I want to position myself in different phases of my career. And she has a weekly LinkedIn Live Friday focus that she does every morning. In fact, you must have done yours already today.
Yep.
So, Laura, longtime friend and mentor, thank you for coming on and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. And thanks for having me.
So, we were talking a little bit before we press record about the world, what's going on, of course, for us. But as someone who's in the transition business, you talk to a lot of people, you guide a lot of people. I have to ask, is this just business as usual, or is there something really different going on in the world right now that's impacting people's not just transitions, but our energy and our focus?
It's kind of both, like there is no doubt change is in the air and things are happening and things are reordering. There's breakdowns, there's breakthroughs, and yet the way to have a raft to survive this is to keep business as much as usual as possible. That's not to say to be in denial about the changes that are all around us or that could be affecting us, but if your tendency is just go hover in a corner and worry, your life is going to stall out. So it's a two-prong approach of listening to what's happening, being real with it, but not giving up on what you're up to. I mean, at the same time, I've had people radically change since the beginning of the year, like with everything that's going on, just decide, some are forced, a lot of government job people are out of their jobs, but I've had other people just say, whoa, what can I do to contribute to things being better, and actually shifted their careers altogether to do something different. So times of change require a certain amount of steadying your own ship so that you just don't get lost in the sea. How's that for a metaphor?
Yep. It's funny you mentioned we did not host, but our partner Atheon hosted a webinar that we had for the public yesterday, and it was around layoff culture and how people are adapting. And it was so wonderful to be in a room with people who are experiencing very similar things right now. But one thing that I gathered is you're talking to a lot of people who have been very successful at doing things and getting stuff done. And now they're in a position through layoff or whatever has gone on in their life, and they are not working the same way, where they just want to keep going. They want to do, and they feel like they can't do their way around the situation. You wrote about something that I thought really resonated for me, although I'm challenged with it constantly, which is this notion of surrendering. Can you talk a bit more about that? I feel like in some ways it's paradoxical to people who are so used to achieving and then have to think about the next step. Of course, we're going to work into it, but talk a bit more about surrendering, because I think that was a big unlock for me.
Yeah, I mean, surrender doesn't have to mean giving up entirely and, not caring and hiding, but surrendering means, like, if you're standing and getting the waves crashing against you, that you pull back for a while and watch the seas. Here I go again with more sea metaphors, but, to watch what's going on a little bit, to take your time deciding what's next, instead of being in the do, I'm going to overcome just by doing thing. That sometimes we have to pull back and observe and see where the next wave is that we can ride that's positive. But the idea of surrender is very confronting to people. But it doesn't mean giving up. It just means taking a pause. Does that help?
I completely see that. And in some ways, if you're not surrendering, you're fighting. It's like you're almost using more energy than you need to fight against something that is going to potentially win out in the end. Like, you have to be able to move with what's happening while still trying to find your North Star.
Right. And at the same time, I don't want anyone to think that if we're, like to put political context around that and say, we're giving up either. So, the fight, we have to fight where we can be effective. And that goes for your own life too.
Right. And I think there's a whole reflection that needs to happen in figuring out like, okay, I don't like this, but what is the best way? Right? Instead of just push,
Right.
or pushing in a direction that isn't going to be useful. So
Right.
I think there's more strategy involved with surrendering than I think people realize. Speaking of strategy, there's another term that I loved. I even wrote about it because I thought it was such a brilliant term: strategic laziness. Something that you have espoused. And that was another unlock for me, because I'll tell you, for me, when the chips are down, I work harder and I push and I push and I push. And of course, this is classic burnout prescription right there. It's really difficult to get anything done when you're pushing too hard. I get that. But you sort of, I don't know, you gave reason to this whole argument around strategic laziness. So tell us a bit more about that and how it works.
Yeah, I mean, to the type A or the overachiever, or even just the achiever, we won't call you an overachiever. It is, again, very confrontive to give permission to be lazy, because you start thinking there's something wrong with you. You start thinking, I've lost my mojo forever. It'll never come back. But strategic laziness is, let the laziness inform what the next step is. It's, again, with this idea of like stepping back and being more strategic and seeing what bubbles up as being important, instead of trying to make everything important because you cannot stand the discomfort of not doing. Does that make sense?
Yes. There's a quote. I'm going to read it because it was so good. I actually like cut and pasted this and put it for future reference. Humans are naturally efficiency-seeking creatures. What we label as laziness often reflects our brain's intuitive drive to conserve energy and focus on what truly matters.
Yeah, I mean, energy is a renewable resource, but it's not an infinite resource. Like, it has to be, your battery needs to be charged. The batteries need to get charged up.
I'll tell you, after reading that, I realized that there were certain activities that I resisted. And I wondered, what's around that? Is it that I'm afraid to do it? Is it that I don't want to be rejected? Is it, and if it wasn't fear that was motivating that, it was like a more intuitive guidance saying, you don't really want that. So why? Right. But it took strategic laziness to actually identify that. I think one of the things that has changed for me as I've gotten older is I can't just keep throwing spaghetti at the wall, right? I want to be strategic about the spaghetti that I throw at the wall, because it's energy that I don't have. I'm in a different place. And I've also seen what that has yielded, and why waste the time? Why waste the spaghetti?
Why waste perfectly good pasta?
Yeah, no way. And you said something earlier about with politics, right? It's not about just kind of rolling over and playing dead. In fact, you have not done that. I think you talked about redirecting your energy, and you are a practitioner of this. Very few on this call may know this, but you run for office twice. And tell us a bit more about how you redirected energy. Was this something that you had to do because you felt just so compelled and you needed to do something? How did this manifest?
Yeah, I mean, talk about a doer, right? Like, this was during the first term of the current president. And I ran for state assembly twice. So I skipped over a couple of layers. Most people start on the Board of Ed, or they start in their town. And I was like, no, I don't want to affect potholes. I want to affect policy and healthcare particularly. And I just, where I was feeling helpless at the fact that they wanted to dismantle the ACA at the time, and I'm sure we'll hear that again. It just occurred to me like, well, I want to be in the fight, and I want to be in the fight where it matters. And I had to educate myself. I had no idea how to run for office. It was probably good that I didn't know what I was doing the first time around. The second time around, I went in with wide open eyes and did much better the second time. I didn't win either time because I was in a district that was really almost unwinnable by the opposition, which is fine. I learned a lot. It was what I had to do. My family was incredibly supportive. It cost us all a lot, in energy and in drama and in, financially some as well. But it was a have to. It was like I had to do it. And so that's where I directed all my energy and all my anger was at. And what the outcome was, I mean, people call me now to find out who they should vote for. Like I actually, really learned the system and learned how it works and learned how the money works and where it comes from. And, so it really gave me a perspective that's irreplaceable by doing it that way. You don't see me running right now. I'm cool. I don't have to do that again. I now help other people run for office. But it was a have to, and it was a matter of energy. It was like, okay, I'm going to put my energy into worrying, or I'm going to put my energy into doing something. And that was my something.
And as an outcome, I mean, obviously now people can turn to you, you've generated some expertise, but also for you, how about the feelings that you had that were unresolved at the time around change? I mean, how did that impact you?
Yes, things were unresolved around change. How it impacted me was, I mean, it paid dividends to me with my family. Like I actually lost friends over it, but with my family itself, my kids were like, why would you do that? Why would you stick your neck out like that? And I was at a luncheon where they honored me for having run and raised money and whatever else. And I was like, you know what I did it for? I did it for her health care, for her female reproductive health care, for his health care, for his ability to keep being in the arts. Do you know what I mean? Like those are my kids, my 3 kids. But it reaped benefits for me in my family understanding what's important and where do we put our energy and when do I wasn't going to roll over and do nothing. And I think that I led by example. And I know I've inspired a lot of other women to run for office. So there was that. I don't know if that really answers the question. In terms of in terms of the friends I lost, it's okay. If you can't support me to do something that I felt was important, then you're not in my inner circle. That's okay. That's okay.
Another benefit of age is, he's learning, when we realize when friends fall away and just knowing it's okay. It's okay.
Exactly.
We have to do what we have to do. This is where I'm going, and some come along for the ride and some do not.
And it shows you, and if I look back at who I lost along the way, it was like, those are the friendships that I had to put all the effort into for them to stay as friends. So it was perfectly okay that's how it played out in the end. Energy conservation. Back to this topic of energy.
Well, yeah, energy, but I think it does relate because part of the energy output we put in is in pleasing so many people, right? And that's part of it, right? Is understanding that you're not going to please everybody. So where am I going to put my energy? Who am I going to please? Who are the people that are going to replenish my energy and help me with what I'm doing so that I'm not constantly think about all the energy it would take having to try to convince friends or win them over. It's hard. It's, I've actually been doing some of that calculus later in life around that, but before I ever even really knew what I was doing. So I think that it does apply. There's another thing that you had recently, you wrote about, and I kind of think of this as a euphemism for people who are all over the place. I count myself as one, multi-passionates.
Yes.
You have many clients who are multi-passionate, and it's a blessing and a curse,
It is.
right? I mean, especially for energy management. Elisa and I talk about this a lot because, I'm always like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. I feel like and she's like, well, you could kind of remove one of those slices from your pie. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but
And
it's difficult. It's difficult. I can't say that I haven't done it. I absolutely have, but it's hard. And sometimes we push it to the limit before we realize, okay, something's got to go. So you have coached multi-passionates. Can you tell me a bit more about what it is? Like, how does this happen? What are the common traits of a multi-passionate? How do you help guide them?
well, one of the worst things to suggest to a multi-passionate is to give up one of their passions.
Mm.
Like that is
Oh,
just it's very self-effacing. However, how it has to happen because we cannot physically do all the things that we want to do, but it's about categorizing it and not losing it. Like I remember one of my earliest clients who was multi-passionate. I mean, this is before she could make a file in her computer. It was like, get the little recipe cards with the recipe card box with the index card, and file your ideas, file all those passions, because the worst thing is to think that you've lost one.
yes. Yes.
So, right. So it's not about keeping all the plates in the air. It's just knowing that you didn't lose one of them. That is an important thing to remember. But they can't all happen at the same time. So it's a constant game of prioritization. And I swear, I learned this as a waitress. Because as a waitress, I constantly had to prioritize which table. If I go into the kitchen, I got to come out with, 4 tables worth of things. Someone wants 6 cappuccinos. That's going to tie me up in there for a long time. What else can I bring out of there? So it's constantly learning how to prioritize. And I swear I think when the Israelis send their kids into the army, we should send our kids into restaurants and learn how to multitask, because we live in such a fast world that constantly reprioritizing is a massive life skill. And letting some things drop, even if you break a plate, oops, it's okay. So being multi-passionate, yes, a blessing and a curse. I mean, it means you have a lot of energy. It means you're very creative. It means you're able to get things done, but it's remembering you don't have to get them all done at the same time.
It's funny you mentioned the waiting tables. It's a metaphor. And I waited tables too in college. And I was the wait person who would take your order, go do something else, come back and say, can I take your order? Right? Like perennially distracted. Friendly, people, I got along, but yeah, you didn't always get what you ordered. So
that's funny.
Interesting. I'm admitting it now, but it makes perfect sense. Like this is, perhaps it's a multi-passionate thing, but it's, we shouldn't work in restaurants, but maybe we should. Maybe that's an early education.
I think it's early education.
Yes. I think we need it in school though, because in school we're taught to specialize, and then we don't know how to do it differently. So we just kind of leave it to our own devices to become multi-passionate. Right. We just sort of dabble in many things. And I think strategic dabbling is an important skill.
Well, strategic dabbling is finding the common thread among your dabbles and realizing like you're ultimately up to the same thing, likely, but they take different forms, right? So I might write, speak, teach, coach, but it's all about the same thing. I want to raise your consciousness, and I want you to use that to have a better life or a better team or a better business. But I just have multiple ways to put it out there. And so when you can find the common thread between all of them, you realize you're not being as disparate as you think. You just have different avenues for that expression. And that is what allows you to sometimes cut back on which avenues are not working. when you realize you're not losing anything. You're not losing anything. You're still getting that expression out in the world. It just takes a different form.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation, Laura. I mean it. So there's something else that you write. I mean, you write something every week.
Yeah, every week.
So I read it religiously. And
thank you. That's so nice to know.
Well, I mean, I've read you religiously for 20 years. So why change it? Why? I mean, but one thing you had in there, and almost every week, I can relate, and I think like, God, she nailed it. But this one in particular, the title was "Joy is a Survival Tactic," or "Joy as a Survival Tactic," and of course, I started reading it, and I thought, oh my God, I am that person who subconsciously believes that joy is for when you're done. Like you wait, first you got to do.
You're never done.
Right. But that's the thing, is that you're never done. And you kind of look back and you go, oh my gosh, I did this, 10-year journey and I didn't have fun. And maybe that's an exaggeration. I do figure out little ways, but that's been a relatively later in life realization. Is like, wow, we could do this for the rest of our lives if we want. What are some of the ways, like you bring it up, joy is almost a tactic. It's like a necessity in order to get through the hard stuff. I imagine you can't just like go off on a pleasure cruise anytime you feel like, wow, I could use some joy in my life. So I'm thinking about joy in micro doses on a more practical level. And how do you guide people who are desperately in need of having some joy in their lives?
It's definitely in the little ways, because like you said, you're not going to go on a pleasure cruise every week. And look, there's some people who major in joy, and bless them. Like I'm more like you. Like it was something that you get put off for delayed gratification, but I never got to the gratification because I so value work, right? And the long list of work. But I've learned, especially during these times, like you have joy as a survival tactic. Like if it's going to be this scenario where we can spell out doom, then we need to look for what are the moments that we live for. What are whether it be something with your kids or with your pet, or like I just went on an audition 2 days ago and sang. It took me 3.5 weeks to get ready for it, but it brought me 3.5 weeks of joy to know that almost every day I was going to sing that darn song. Almost every day I was going to do my vocal warm up. And it just made me a little giddy for, a half an hour a day, or the 15 minutes in the car or whatever. So little micro doses of joy, because it's so easy to find no joy right now. It's so easy. It's so easy to be worried. It's so easy to work harder. It's so easy to be in fear that, just think about your nervous system, and your nervous system needs these moments of joyful wonder and playfulness, or else it's just constantly in fight or flight mode. Not healthy.
I don't know if you remember this, but gosh, it was probably 20 years ago. You were in the Bay Area and you had invited me to come see you speak. And this was in the East Bay and Bay Area. Yeah. And I went to see you. And at the end, you sang.
Did I?
You did. And I was like, oh my God. First of all, you were amazing. But I was like, I didn't read. This is when I learned you were a performer in a previous life.
Yes.
And still are. Let's be clear. So yeah. I think that you practice what you preach.
I try. I mean, it would be really not right of me to be, telling people what to do, and I don't do what I say you should do. Right. So I try to ask people to do only what I would do.
Well, so speaking of, you are a coach of coaches.
Yes.
And we have a lot of coaches in our midst, people who, even if some are career coaches, some executive coaches in our community, but also solopreneurs. And a common refrain, of course, especially in times like these, where there's a lot of uncertainty, is around getting clients and getting some sort of stability in their portfolio of clients. And you actually have a whole philosophy around that, which I think would be really useful to talk about. And it definitely relates to energy management because, a lot of these, we have a one-off mentality to our businesses sometimes that can be really detrimental to sustaining. So tell us a bit more about your I think you call it trading time for money as a common tactic, but one to be overcome.
Yeah, I mean, if we think about coaches or anyone who therapists or healers, people who trade hours for dollars, right? So if you're not delivering the service in person at that moment for a fee, then you're not working, right? You're not making money. So in growing a business that's a service-based business based on the person who delivers the service, you have to start looking for how you do diversify that. How do you have either passive income or how do you leverage your time, right? So if I do a group coaching, I'm serving 6 to 8 people. That's saving me 6 to 8 hours doing it one-on-one, right? And they get it at a lesser price point, but I'm actually benefiting in a much maximized hour or hour and a half versus doing 8 hours of coaching, right? So it's looking for ways to scale. And another thing that I'm big on is, since there's so many coaches now, like when I started, there was nobody and I had to educate people. And now it's, oh, I met 50 of you this week. So how do you become a category of one? You become a category of one by having your own methodology. And, that's what I accomplished with my Now What book. Now What? 90 Days to a New Life Direction is a 90-day methodology. It's a method to gain clarity for career and life direction. And no one else does it that way, right? So category of one, there's plenty of career coaches. There's plenty of other people who can help you figure that out, but not in this way. So those are the strategies that I help other coaches and healing professionals with to stand out in the marketplace.
And you do have a course for coaches?
I have a program. I have 2 programs. One is a foundational program for coaches starting out. One is for my elite coaches who have been at it a long time and are ready to scale and all these things that I'm talking about. And that's the A-List Coach. The alistcoach.com is where you can find those.
Okay. Well, I will make sure that we leave that resource for all of our viewers so
Thank
they
you.
have that, and for our community, because I think it'll be pretty beneficial for so many in our community. Okay, so there's another concept that that I love. That I swear to God, I just should have like the lore lexicon taped to my wall because I go back to so much of it. But it's the zone of genius, right? Is one of the things that I know I complain incessantly about is like, gosh, I love doing strategy, but then if you ask me, the billing for it, or billing is not my favorite part at all. But there's also aspects of execution. Some execution I actually really enjoy in my work, but some of it, it's a drudgery. And why are you paying me to do this? Because it's just going to be a drudgery and it's going to take twice as long, even though, someone else could do this so much better. And so you've written about this zone of genius and really getting clear on what that is and using that as really putting focus there. Talk a bit more about how you coach your clients around that.
Yeah, I mean, your zone of genius is like, what's that thing that only you can do that no one else in the business can do? Or, if you're totally working by yourself, you're going to say everything, but that's incorrect. Because think of what you do. Think of what you do really well. Think of how much you get paid for it and put an hourly rate on it. Then realize that you're paying yourself that hourly rate to go to the post office. You're spending way too much money on going to the post office. You need to find somebody else to do it, even if it's your kid, right? So I actually have my self-employed clients look at, okay, so what are you paying yourself for that zone of genius work. And now look at what you're paying. You're paying yourself that same amount for all this other work that's not your zone of genius. What are $10 an hour tasks? What are $25 an hour tasks? What are $50 an hour tasks? And go find people to do them, because you will proceed and benefit and prosper faster getting all that off your plate. Because you even said it, it takes you twice as long to do as someone who loves to do it.
Yeah. Yes. I learned this actually making dinner. Because so for me, I hate shopping. And my daughter envisions herself, she's like, she watches
wants to be a personal shopper.
Yeah. And so I'm like, look, I want to keep working on this here. Why don't you start shopping and I'll catch up with you when it's done? And she's like, yeah, I'm into it. Right. So you're right. Even a kid, you can put to work in an effective way. But
Exactly.
This is an eye opener for me because, gosh, I mean, and you can feel like you're trudging through mud when you have
so relate to that. I can so relate to that. And it gives you brain fog and you just don't function right. And it's like, well, then don't do it.
Right. Right.
To do it.
I actually quit something I was doing because there was some of the work, but it kept, I kept deferring to that kind of work. And I'm like, I honestly can't charge you for this. I can't. It doesn't make sense. And I shouldn't have taken this role. Like, you're not using my superpowers. So let's get you someone who will. Last question for you. This is about, I envision, like, do you know those quadrants where you have the like non-urgent?
Yes. Urgent and important.
Right. And one of the things that I know I struggle with is that I've got over here, like, I really should work on my personal website. I really should get that stuff done, but I've got my client work right now. It's got to get done. And when it comes to energy, of course, you end up putting all the energy over here, and then you're like, wow, it's the weekend. I'm not going to do right. So, but you know that if you're going to meet your goals and really hit those aspirations that you've set for yourself, you've got to eventually get to those. How are you coaching people around that? Because, it's so easy to get caught up in like money. I'm getting paid to do this, right? I'm not getting paid to do that. I just want to do more of that in the end. Right. So what do you tell people?
I look at it as a combination menu, like at a restaurant. Like you can move things into the main columns. I find that especially with women, we will write a to-do list for the day. That's really a to-do list for 3 months. And you think you're going to get it done in a day.
Yeah.
So things are going to fall off that list. It's back to the prioritization. Like, all right, the personal website is not going to take precedence over the paid work. But then you realize 3 months went by and you haven't done the personal website. Now, has the lack of personal website become a problem? Now you moved it into an urgent thing. So the art of it is, how do you not just live in urgency? How do you move one over into, getting it done sooner category without it having to be an emergency, without having your hair on fire? And it's less is more, like, This, I don't know why I'm bringing this up. This is a pet peeve in my house. I am so lucky that my husband does the cleaning up every night except for his birthday and Father's Day. Like, I do not do the dishes. If he goes on a business trip, it's a bummer because I have to pretend that I do the dishes. I kind of hide them and make him do them when he comes back. But he won't touch the stovetop. And it's not like something that can wait. It's disgusting. Right. But do I want to make that a priority? Like, pay myself top dollar and have can I have somebody else do it? But I can't stand that it's like that. So, there's going to be things that you can't stand and become more urgent. And so you make time for them. I don't know. I kind of find it like a natural flow, but you don't want it to become an emergency. That's all I'm saying.
And maybe micro chunking it,
right, like micro chunking it so you don't light the stovetop on fire with a grease fire, right? We don't want it to be an emergency.
Wipe something down. Not exactly. If you can't do the whole thing, just by parts of it.
Right. Get the crud up, then you get the grease up, then, whatever. But yes, chunk it. Yes. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, that's like something I learned in coaching school in the early days was bite-sized pieces. Bite-sized pieces makes it palatable and makes it, it gets done eventually.
Well, with that, Laura, first of all, thank you. I am honored. I mean, I still do brag. I'm like, I know one of the very first coaches.
One of the OGs.
Right? One of the OGs, master coach. I can't tell you how grateful I am personally and how grateful I am on behalf of this community for getting your wisdom and together. And thank you. We need it and we're so grateful. And how can people find you?
Probably the best way, and you can find anything we've talked about, Now What, or the A-List Coach, you can find it under my name. So laurabermanfotgang.com, and you'll find a way to get to everything else that we've talked about today. So that's probably the best way. Just Google me.
And with that, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week. Have a wonderful quarter. Have a wonderful year. Have a wonderful life.
Thank you.